And hello, everyone. We are back. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, hello for the first time. But here we are with Kyle Fulford. Kyle, who just waved hello. Ooh. Yeah, rock on, Kyle Fulford. Are you ready for your interview this week on Folkwise?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, why not indeed? Well, before we get to that, Daisy, do you want to
get
get
screen
to
with
the...
Sniff?
Sniff.
Sniff sighting.
Sniff sighting? Sniff
Go on
sighting?
screen with Sniff.
Boop, 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 boop,
Sniff
boop.
has a really
Sniff, you're in F-Zero.
message. Sniff, you're in F-Zero. He goes so fast, so he understands.
Sniff, what's the message?
Sniff has a message. He told me to tell you all that, you might see Daisy and Dom on Folkwise, but in fact, there's absolutely a huge number.
Oh,
maybe
bye,
not
Sniff.
huge number. There's bye, Sniff. Sniff told me and then ran, but there is in fact you see Dom and Daisy, you see us on screen, you see us and you think, wow, Folkwise is two people, but you would be wrong. Sniff is here to remind us, and I am here to speak for Sniff about the fact that there are a number of people who participate and help us make the show every week, and some of those people we affectionately call our sleuthing team. So when you think about who comes up with the questions, who is doing all this research, well, it's not always Daisy and Dom. Often we have a team of sleuths who we refer to every single week as something along the lines of beautiful, detailed, I don't know, inquisitive, and turn my dream brain into actual legible, magical questions for each of our guests. And this week in particular, we had a very special series of guest sleuths help us come up with the interview. So if you like what you hear, or if Kyle, if you think it's funny or whatever, if the chat was like, that's what the question I had, don't thank Dom and Daisy, don't thank us, thank the sleuthing team. And with that, commence interview, I suppose.
Thank you, Daisy. Thanks, sleuths. All right, Kyle, we're ready to get into it. So,
well, no offense, Dom, but in the chat, someone suggested that Sniff asked the question, so I think we should transition to
Sniff. Maybe he can tell me some of the questions.
Yeah, Sniff, relate to Daisy. I think Sniff ran into Mute City if I saw Daisy's backdrop correctly.
He was enticed by the Osmosis Jones / Microbial City or whatever.
Sniff has run into F-Zero to introduce the idea of public transport.
Yes.
All right, let's get to our first question, which may or may not have been written by Sniff the cat, but who knows? All right, Kyle, first question for you. So, sonic aspects of technology rapidly change, but why would folks want to deliberately utilize older audio technologies to make new sounds?
Well, it depends, of course, but I think that there's this misconception. Well, it gets really tricky because these aesthetics like lo-fi or indie, retro, vintage, whatever you want to call it, are associated with these older technologies when they are used in sort of contemporary ways. But I think it's not controversial to say that they're used because they sound good to the people who use them. I think that the ideas of fidelity are not as complicated as we might believe. Of course, like every recording artist, I'm sure wants their music to sound good, but most importantly, to sound good to them, right? So I think the intentional use of older technologies in modern musicking is because they like it. It brings an aesthetic quality to. I mean, it's as simple as that. It sounds really simplistic, but yeah.
No, I have a folklore dream brain manifesto about this. No, it's the politics of trivialization. It's okay to just like stuff. It doesn't have to be like an opus for it to be meaningful. Like, you can just like stuff because it sounds cool to you. It doesn't have to be for everybody. So I as a folklorist, I appreciate that response because I think it's true. Like, people can just like stuff and it doesn't have to be like profound.
Yeah, well,
or even relatable.
There are other reasons, I'm sure, we can get into like sort of fetishism and all of that for these older instruments or older technologies, really obscure like mechanical synthesizers and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, because they're just cool. They're just like how the way that they function and how they were designed is cool. But yeah, I'll die on that hill.
Nice. I mean, it's a like you said, it should not be a controversial hill to die on. Um,
Yeah.
when you talked about like those uh and forgive me the way you answered it right now, but like when you said like the old synthesizers are like the retro or indie aesthetic, um do you do you have any sort of like notion as to why like the 80s has such a strong hold over nostalgia?
Yeah, I think that well, for a couple of reasons. I think it sort of reached its sort of popular culture apex a few years ago, with Stranger Things, and
Mm-hmm.
then the success of The Weeknd's Blinding Lights, obviously, and all of this happened during quarantine and lockdown, of course. So I think that probably played a part as well. But yeah, I think that the escapism, into the sort of 80s aesthetic permeated not only music and popular culture and media and all of that, but there's something in particular that is just revered. It's loved about that period of time and in popular culture, and I would speculate that that's why it's so pervasive and so durable. But it's a tough question to answer. Yeah.
Is this kind of approaching technostalgia that I know you like to use, like talking about like the zenith of like Stranger Things and The Weekend?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's just an example I use that sort of everyone knows, or is at
Exactly.
least with. But in the case of The Weekend, I think the mix engineer, I think his name is Serban Gena, said that its universal appeal comes from the place that like older folks like me like it because it's a throwback, but then the this generation likes it because it's fresh, it's new to their ears, right?
Hmm.
So I think that's also a sort of sideways nostalgia, maybe.
Yeah. I like the idea of sideways nostalgia. I mean, it reminds me of like me watching Happy Days and thinking it was just like a show from the 50s. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
When I was a kid in like the 90s and 2000s. Yeah.
yeah. And I should note that I did not come up with that term, sideways nostalgia. That's credited to scholar Svetlana Boym, who writes about it. But yeah, I had the exact same experience myself as a kid watching The Wonder Years. So that came
Mm-mm.
out, in the late 80s, but of course was, taking place in the late 60s. And, obviously all of this stuff is cyclical, and right now it's sort of a weird pastiche of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and in 5 years it'll be something else.
Yeah. Wonder Years another another example. I don't think I knew it was a period piece as a boy. I just thought that's what shows looked like.
Well, they literally do the moon landing in the first episode, so
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I was watching it sequentially. Oh, and I
Oh
typed
shit,
cite
thanks
it in
PH
chat, and
Dumplings.
we
Yeah,
got a
thanks PH
citation.
Dumplings.
Thank you, PH
Hell yeah.
Dumplings.
yeah,
Very good.
nostalgia and discontents, love that.
I love what the emote cite it has caused chat to what we trained chat to do with that one. I love that. Um, Kyle, so this is kind of getting into or bridging the gap between these sort of like what sounds like nostalgia and like how you can recreate that in a studio, and specifically getting into sort of like the personal with you. But how have your own studies of these kind of like record like musics and recording practices overlapped in your own studio work with the latest Witness Protection album?
Oh yeah, for sure. So this latest album is not as overtly nostalgic as my previous one, but of course, I'm always trying to incorporate sounds from all different eras of times in my own musicking. But I mean, one of my standard go-tos is my love of the mellotron. I love all things mellotron, and it sort of evokes that sort of romantic. Well, for me, it evokes the sound that I associate with progressive rock, because that's a genre that used that instrument extensively, and it's become associated with that genre. And so it was sort of like wearing my influences on my sleeve in that way. So I always find a way to sneak in a mellotron. I mean, come on. But also, just like, I really messed around a lot more with the string arrangements on this album, which, I mean, if we want to go all the way back, to early music, or whatever, a certain type of music associated with a bunch of white Europeans in the 18th and 19th century, then you might call it classically influenced rock music, I guess, in that way. Different kind of nostalgia, but yeah, I'm always looking to combine all different kinds of sounds from all different kinds of eras in my own music. And I don't think that that's special or unique. I think that that many musicians, going back to my previous point, just use whatever sounds good to them in the context of the song, whatever serves the song, in other words.
Yeah. God, I have such happy memories of the mellotron, because I like was flashed back to a July night watching Moody Blues in the amphitheater at the Toledo Zoo, and God, I remember being like, "What is that instrument?" as a boy. So big mellotron fan, big fan of Peter Gabriel era Genesis. I also love the mellotron.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the story, and I might be combining some incorrect and correct details here, but I believe that is it Mike Pinder, the keyboard player for Moody Blues, worked for Streetly Electronics, which later or which developed the mellotron, or maybe it was the Chamberlain, I don't remember which, but he actually was an employee there, and was one of the first to use it, almost exclusively. But again, going back to the Beatles, which we talked about in the previous live stream, the flute at the beginning of Strawberry Fields Forever is probably one of the most well-known uses of mellotron in the popular consciousness, anyway.
Sure. Did Daisy edit in that flute and get this video taken down for copyrighted music? No, don't do that.
I'll do it. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'll use the soundboard.
No, but
oh, rip. Sorry, weird stream boo, whoever you are. Goodbye.
Kyle, how does this also how does the ability to have a mobile recording studio, or insert a studioscape into your home or another place, influence how your album gets recorded and the choices you make?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I mean, in many ways, I'll try to give you the short answer of that. But the studioscape, as I sort of use that term, is not really a place, but a set of practices. So, as you mentioned, the mobile recording studio is not tethered to a traditional sort of recording studio as it maybe would have been, or once was anyway. But of course, those practices also inform modern contemporary recording practices as well. But for me personally, it's always been the most problematic instrument to record is drums, is a drum set. And so that's been difficult to try and find places. Right now, I just have a little storage unit where I actually record drums in there. And that's worked pretty well. But yeah, I literally just take my laptop and plug it into the microphones and just do my thing. But previously, I've collaborated with musicians on this website, airgigs.com, which is you can collaborate with musicians around the world. And I've had session musicians play drums or play flute or whatever on my records. And I think that we could also include those types of practices into the studioscape as well.
Sure. I'm just thinking. We were talking about we weren't talking about rock biopics earlier. We were talking about rock documentaries. But I'm just picturing in the Ian Curtis Joy Division biopic where they put the drums on the roof to record them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like one step away from there.
Yeah, for me that was Stone Temple Pilots. So they recorded their third album. They recorded the drums outside. The engineer Brendan O'Brien
Mm.
just came up with this idea of recording them. And of course, recording drums outside, it's essentially an anechoic chamber. There's no reverberation whatsoever.
Yeah,
So you just get this really like flat, dry, dead drum sound, and you can manipulate it, to your heart's content at that point.
that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, environmental music. So, you have a forthcoming chapter about Italian prog rock that's coming out soon, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And we got a prog rock question, but and you actually addressed this a little bit in a previous answer, but can you talk a little bit about like what is like of academic interest about Italian prog?
It's just it's really understudied.
Mm,
I don't know that there's a huge cry in ethnomusicology or even in musicology or popular music studies to really um, document this period of musicking in Italy in the 1970s. But
hmm
it's important to me because it's my favorite kind of music. And when I first started out in graduate school, that's what I thought I wanted to do. It's a very niche sort of topic, and my methodologies would have been limited as sort of a historic geographic sort of method.
Yeah.
And that is not what folklorists and ethnomusicologists necessarily do. Of course, we incorporate those methodologies into our work as well, but
hmm
there's no ethnographic component, I guess. But yeah, I would still say that it's really understudied. That the sort of cultural, but also more importantly, the political
Yeah.
moment in the Anni di Piombo in the 1970s in Italy, and
hmm
the mafioso and all of that is a really interesting set of a really interesting way to insert lines of inquiry, I would argue, and is still ripe for those types of questions. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe finish this degree first, and then I'll do what I came here to do in the first place.
My dad moved back to Italy like exactly during the Ani di Piombi.
Yeah.
Yeah, chill normal time over there. But I guess the real the real question we have, and I believe it's something you've spoken about before, but can you talk a little bit about this sort of democratizing nature that is shared between genres like prog rock and math rock and Midwest emo?
Oh gosh, can who came up with that question?
Not sure.
I don't know that this democratization narrative that I've really explored it in terms of genre construction per se.
hmm
Um, I have
Mm.
mostly investigated it as it relates to recording practices.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I see where you're going. I like pick up where you're gesturing with this because of course there's overlap. The one could argue that math rock is, I don't want to use the word indebted, but is definitely descendant of progressive rock for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And then I would place emo sort of like in an adjacent, maybe parallel, like a Venn diagram, I guess it would
Uh-huh.
be a better uh, sort of application. But yeah, I think that they're all related. I think we need look no further than bands like Black Midi to make that clear. But yeah, for sure, I think that there is a certain democratizing. Again, I don't want to use the word like freedom, but there's a certain lack of limitations that
Yeah.
a genre like progressive rock or math rock or even fifth wave, fourth wave emo
We're on a fifth.
bring. I just started it
Oh,
right now.
nice.
hmm Yeah, it's going to be called Fulford Zero Emo.
I love that. That's very good. A very good name for genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. No, but I think you did. I think you did answer
Yeah.
exactly how the question was being gestured. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is a sort of freedom of
yeah.
of expression to do whatever noodling, etc. you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, I appreciated that like distinction between like genre and maybe access or something, and like thinking about like what elements of it are democratizing. Like splitting that apart really did something for me, I guess. Yeah, makes
yeah.
sense.
I think to Daisy's point, I think that's more what I'm interested in as well. Is
Mm.
like who are the sort of narrative is that, well, home recording practices allow folks who couldn't enter into the recording studio for one reason or another, well, now they can, right? Like anyone who can make a record or who wants to make a record can. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are all kinds of barriers and socioeconomic or what have you to recording at home. And that's what I want to find answers to. I have always had a complicated relationship with genre. If you listen to any of my music, I have a genre commitment issues, and I think progressive rock, math rock, emo lend themselves to that sort of attitude philosophy.
I think all the best folklorists have a difficult relationship with genre, right, Daisy?
Yeah, I was gonna say they either really, really like it to their detriment, or they have a complicated relationship with it.
Yeah, my folklore friends in the department are in the midst of writing their final paper for genre, for the genre class, which Dom, I'm sure you've taken.
I took it with Diane Goldstein. I don't know who would teach it now.
Okay, but yeah, that yeah, ladders in the chat for my folklore friends at IU.
Queer folklorist in the chat says even the mid folklorists have a complicated relationship with genre. Ask me how I know.
Seriously, hey, ladders for everyone who has to study genre right now.
Oh my god.
This is another question we have that's kind of getting getting off the beaten path for what a lot of scholars we have on the show do. But Kyle, you built a program with machine learning to analyze the styles of classical composers as a classification tool.
Yeah, that was a class project I took. So I minored in digital humanities, and I pretty much did it solely because I wanted to take this class, which was music data mining. I do have a technology background. I've done IT work and stuff like that.
And what was your undergrad in?
I was a liberal studies undergrad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I never did computer science or anything like that. It's all basically just hands-on work experience.
Cool.
But I had no coding experience either, and so I took Python over the summer as one of my languages, essentially.
They let it count?
Yeah, they let it count.
Yes.
Yeah.
In my day, like Rodrigo come on the show, but they didn't let it count for Rodrigo. I remember that. He was so mad.
Well, there's actually a bit of a kerfuffle about that right now because another student is going through that currently and wasn't able to get it to count. But I sort of had this research plan and this sort of justification for doing it, and took the necessary coursework to do it. Had all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted before I set out on that journey, and learned enough Python to take this class. And unfortunately, I was the only non-data science student in the class. And so I had to work a lot, go to office hours with the AI and stuff like that to figure out the Python stuff. But in the end, yeah, our team came up with a model for genre classification in classical music. We basically took samples from 6 different composers and tried to figure out, but they weren't labeled, like none of the metadata. The machine didn't know which was which, and tried to figure it out based on this data set. And so I think that would scale really nicely to popular music, which is maybe something I want to do further down the road. But yeah, it was a really fun experience, not necessarily, intimately related to what I'm interested in, but cool for sure. Like, yeah really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Daisy was in chat, like affirming, affirming you, but like about how active, like that kind of process is. That's real cool. Um, do you have any not on the other side of that experience? Now that you like made it through there alive, so to say, do you have uh, any like vision you see for like technology or AI or machine using as like a or machine learning as like a sonic tool?
I'm gonna avoid that question, and I would actually implore folkloristics to use more. Ethnomusicology is a lost cause. I've given up on trying to.
Okay, it's not where I thought you were going with that.
Yeah.
I think there, I think there are real applications in folklore, and I think Tim Tankerlini maybe is like a good example to look at here with mapping and sort of stuff like that. We have also work in our own department that combine computational work and folkloristics, and I think that that's needed. I think that there is an entire intersection of data and humanistic data, of qualitative and quantitative data that we should really be looking at or should have been looking at for a while now. And it's, sort of cordoned off into these departments. Like we're really fortunate at IU to have an Institute for Digital Humanities. And I loved working with Ida during my minor. But yeah, I would say folklore and ethnomusicology definitely should make room for big data for sure.
Yeah, I think what a lot of what we're seeing now, like you said, is qualitative and quantitative, not talking, or not getting along like the in the ways the one side thinks the other would act. You know what I mean? So I think what you're
Right.
saying is very important.
Well, I think you need both.
Exactly.
It's not an either or proposition. These things are not mutually exclusive.
Sure. You have like two hemispheres of a brain. Yeah.
Maybe this is like gonna take I don't necessarily want to take us in a different direction if it's gonna go that way, but do you think that might be because folklorists are afraid of like returning to the historic geographic method? Do you think that they have like a fear of like
quant?
Yeah, they might have like a fear of quant because the historic geographic method was like so damaging to so many communities because it resulted in like massive generalizations about what the human experience is and what the cultural experience is. Like, I wonder if they're like so afraid. I don't know. I'm speculating a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe there's something.
I think there's got to be some truth to that. I think that the redefining or defining our disciplines going forward, we how could we not be reflexive about our disciplines or how we got here, in other words. So, but I mean, like, hello, the ATU and the motif index are like just big lists. I mean, they're quantitative lists of tail types and motifs. So and we all use that all the time. So it's like something that we do. I don't know where that fear comes from, honestly.
I think there's ways to do it, Daisy. Oh, if I may.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think there's. I think what I'm hearing, like Kyle gesture, because I just liked that use of that earlier. What it gesture towards is there's ways to bring back the quantitative side of the humanities, the historic geographic, whatever, without like being overly extractive like we used to be. I think we've grown up in the ethnographic turn to where we can do some of the things that resemble those days, but without like the harsh extraction that was motivating all of those studies.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe it's just a matter of evaluating not just how we interpret the data, in a reflexive way, but also like how does the analysis of this data help the communities with whom we work, right? I don't think that those interests were necessarily the first thought 75 years ago with this sort of extractive model. But I think you're right. I think that the disciplines are mature enough at this point to handle it.
Yeah, you said that very well, Daisy.
I'm just thinking like there's just a lot of underutilized resources like that. Like I'm pretty sure that there's a legend index that's like the same thing as the ATU motif index, but nobody uses it. And I'm like, why? Like, I mean, I have not heard of it. I heard of it once in a graduate class, which is like pretty exclusive access to that kind of knowledge. But contemporary legends are everywhere. It seems like it would be perfect to have a kind of data motif index type record, but it's like nobody's taken that up as a special project, or like even the people who are really like leading the field in terms of legend scholarship and documenting them, like folklorists do, like they just like avoid it. I don't know. Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing that up anyway.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, and why stop at myth, or why stop at legend? Why not myth? Why not, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Well, Kyle, we reached the end of your serious questions. You want to get into some fun questions?
Yes.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, first one.
That's kind of fun, though.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, sleuths. Thank you, sleuths.
We learned a lot, so yeah.
All right. This first fun question. In recent set photos from the Timothee Chalamet Bob Dylan biopic, he is singing into a Sony C38 microphone, which didn't exist until 1965, even though that appears to be young Bob Dylan. Two questions. One, why didn't they call you? And two, what's your favorite vintage microphone?
Oh gosh. Okay. So yeah, I guess I was not a consultant on this particular project.
Damn.
But yeah, I had a scheduling conflict for this one. Lil Timmy did call me a few times during the pre-production and the production, but it was never asked that specific.
He never asked you questions. He just like rapped at you.
Yeah, why they retconned the Sony C38 into the film, I don't know. Probably a lack of R&D, I would gather. Favorite vintage microphone, geez. One of my favorite microphones that I've ever owned was the shitty pencil condenser that I got at I worked at Radio Shack for about 10 months, and I got a pretty sweet employee discount, and it was like a $40 microphone, nothing too fancy, but it sounded good on anything. I'd put that thing on a drum. I sang in that thing. I put on an acoustic guitar, and it didn't matter what you put it on. It just sounded good. This is going to be the most vanilla of vanilla answers, because it would be, sexy for me to say, oh, a Neumann, U87 or U67. But I will never own one of those in my lifetime because they cost like $8,000. I got to say, as much shit as people give the Shure SM57, that microphone is iconic for a reason. I mean, it sounds like if you're miking up a guitar cabinet or a snare drum, you're not using anything but a 57. Mm-hmm. I mean, it goes without saying. So it may not be vintage, it may not be sexy, it may not be cool, but it's gonna work, and it's gonna work well.
That's right. As someone with Shure's in his soundboard at work, I'm a believer as well.
Yeah.
And thank you, chat, for putting the phrase Lil Tim Tim in my head.
I can't unsee it now. I'm just like, oh, that's Lil Timmy. So, that little guy. He's my son.
I haven't seen Wonka.
He's my son.
Although I know the guy who directed The Mighty Boosh directed Wonka, so I'll see it at some point. I love that guy.
I got thoughts about it. That relate to whether or not Timothee Chalamet can do whimsy, but anyway, and nepotism, but whatever.
Do you guys know that in China, Western celebrities get like nicknames that are more easily pronounced in Chinese, in Mandarin? Do you know about this?
Examples?
Well, the number one example is like, LeBron James, we call him like King James, but they call him like Emperor Jia in China, because they had emperors, not kings, and they just took like Jia Messi or whatever and made it just the first syllable, Jia. But my other favorite example is Timothee Chalamet, they call him the same thing for sweet tea.
Isn't that so cute?
Because he's little Tim Tim, and he's a little glass of sweet tea. But also, yeah. All right, moving on from sweet tea. Kyle, but still to small boys. Kyle, when you and your friend made a fake radio show as an exercise in audio editing, did you invent the podcast?
How?
Sleuths.
Top secret sleuth.
Sleuths.
The sleuth. It's the sleuth.
Oh my God. Did I invent podcasting?
We think you invented
12,
podcasting.
13 years old. So the call sign was WKAE, Kyle and Ethan. Of course, W being east of the Mississippi.
East of the Mississippi.
Yes, and what is it's Z on the
K.
on the west. K, that's right, K. Did I invent podcasting? No. I think the whole, maybe can we give this one to Roosevelt in his fireside chat?
I don't know if we've ever had anyone answer a question with can we give this one to Roosevelt? But I think it's a valid way to answer most questions.
Now I'm like, oh shit, wait. I mean, I guess that's probably the right answer, but
I mean, if I could take credit for it, I would probably be a bajillionaire by now, and obviously that's not true, so it can't be true.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Next question we have. Can you tell us the steps you took to recreate an 80s workout video in a music video?
In my video?
Yeah.
Oh, in scene missing. Yeah, so that's all just stock footage.
All of that is stock footage?
Yeah.
Of the girl getting dressed?
This is the funniest answer to that. What? That's all stock footage?
Yeah, so IU has access to like the premium assets on Adobe Stock.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, because like when we make
that's amazing.
Like when Daisy makes starter pack memes, also using like the
like stock stuff.
The Adobe stock photos. So all that was done with stock footage of like you just search like workout?
Yeah, all of it.
And did you do like a filter over it or what?
Did I do what?
Was there like a filter over it or you just as is?
Oh, I did apply a filter. Yeah, so when I edited it, I applied, all the fades and transitions, and then also the sort of the title screen and all of that when I did. But I mean, I'm by no means I'm an audio guy. I can edit a 3 minute and 15-second video together.
Yeah.
I would never be able to edit a film. It was just a matter of literally stitching those together and making it sort of make sense in this sort of technostalgic narrative, which at the time I didn't have language for. But yeah, it was all just kind of a happy accident.
Damn. Yeah. Well, it passed the smell test, as it were, because I'm floored. I guess last kind of fun question. And chat, if you've got chat questions, let us know. Post them in chat for Kyle to read. But last question: who does your album art, and how did you start this partnership?
Yeah. So same answer. The first couple I did by myself, just using stock assets. I'm not a graphic design. I don't have a graphic design background. And when I get to the release stage, I'm so sick of the album at that point that I don't have a lot of energy left over to really think about the album art. But I recognize, the importance of having a cover that represents the music within. And so my philosophy on that started to change.
Mm-hmm.
And my first collaboration was with a local artist here. Her Instagram handle is This Now Chicken. I don't have a way. I can monitor the chat, but I don't have a way to type it in the chat.
I got you. That's what I'm here for.
The caveman that invented the rotisserie.
I think there's actually two. I think it's This Snow Chicken, if I'm not mistaken. But
okay.
April Kirk, a friend of mine, our kids went to school together, and she's a visual artist, and went to one of her galleries one time, and I was just finishing up the album, and I saw this work that she had created, and it just happened to be called the same name as the album, Second Thoughts, and I was like,
Say no more. That's it.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, "This is it. This is the cover." And I was like, "I want to buy it." And she's like, "It's sold." And so I was like, "Well, let me license it, the image." And she's like, "You can just use the image for your album."
Aw.
And
Hell
so
yeah.
I did. This most recent one, the Magic Box, a lot more thought and effort went into the cover for this one. So I think this is the best album cover, certainly that I've ever been associated with. It's and I'm not, as I mentioned, not a visual artist, so I don't know the correct term, but it's a digital collage basically. But yeah, a colleague of mine, friend, Gwen Harris, IU Folklore and Ethnomusicology, sort of explained the concept of the album to her, and she got out her iPad and just got to work and just completely articulated what I thought the album sounded like in just such a beautiful way, and was gracious enough to let me use that piece for the Magic Box, and I just couldn't be happier with it. It's beautiful.
Wow, that's great.
Hell yeah. Hope y'all peeped that during the break. If not, catch it next week or whatever.
Oh
but...
yeah, it'll run next week.
Yeah, it'll run. It'll run for a while.
Awesome.
But anyway, yeah.
I'm gonna be listening to this tomorrow because
I
I'm a
might be
huge
too,
fucking
like-
nerd. But I
Yeah.
love this. And Kyle, what a way to cap off your interview on Folkwise. Thank you so much.
No, thank you guys.
And
This
then
was fun.
where if people want to learn or read or hear more, where can they find you?
Yeah, so most of what I'm trying to build up my website a little more. My personal website is just kylefulford.com. It's also mirrored at technostalgiastudios.com, and that's the website I'll be using to sort of direct traffic to my research study for my dissertation research, and hopefully work with and collaborate with some not only local musicians, but maybe we'll do some online collaboration as well, and see what kind of sounds we can make. So yeah, that's my website, and then you can find all the witness protection stuff on the link tree, but you can also find that on witnessrock.com as well.
Hell yeah. Those links Daisy posted, and they briefly covered my face. Thank you, Daisy, for putting me in a link jail. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show. And you already alluded to this once, Kyle, but everybody in chat for Kyle's interview, you've got one thing left to do, and that is drop ladders in chat for Kyle. Give him a hearty GG if you're not a subscriber. And Kyle, thank you so much for coming on to the show this week.
No, thank you guys. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, great way to spend a Tuesday night.
This
you know
is
what?
awesome. I feel like I learned a lot
I
too.
agree. I love spending my Tuesdays like this.
Yeah. For real. This is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, now is your natural out.
Yeah, this is where Daisy says now is your natural out.
Yeah,
oh,
if you
shit. Oh, and are we allowed to reveal secret ringer sleuth?
I have to know who knows about the radio station. Well, you can tell me privately.
No, it was friend of the show, secret deputized sleuth Suyash.
Okay.
Who called in as the Kyle Whisperer to help reform some of the craft some of the questions after we wrote them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only the best. Sleuth. And Suyash, thanks for showing up in chat to watch. I see you.
For real.
The good stuff.
The good stuff.
The good stuff. Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as Daisy said, Kyle, this is you're out if you need to log off. I'm gonna put Daisy back on.
We're gonna, I guess, try to play more Fulford 099.
Yeah, you can.
Well,
we're gonna attempt or something.
Have fun with that. I am so done with that game.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
I can't quit it.
Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna figure out how to make
Bye,
it work.
Kyle.
Anyway. Bye.
Enjoy your
See
ladders.
everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. See ya.
A worm. Yeah, no, I'm
Oh, worm?
Quilts have had meaning on many levels. Making quilts helped me to get a sense of my own space, sense of finding my way, sense of really working my way out of the labyrinth.